Welcome. It goes on and on a bit, doesn't it? I might start with what a Rotary Action Group is, because Rotary Action Groups are really important for Rotary clubs. There are many Rotary Action Groups that are available to you to get involved with, and they all are there to support you in any of the projects you do. But they also meet the criteria of the 7 areas of focus for Rotary. So there are ones on domestic violence, addiction, family health, mental health, water and sanitation, endangered species, food plant solutions, obviously economic development. And what they do is that they can support you in any project you want to do. For example, to prepare a global grant, you might look at an area that has experts in that field, and you contact them and they can help you through preparing the grant, working together, getting maybe people in that area of expertise in another country. So they're really a great asset to Rotary clubs. That's what they're there for. And they've been going for a long while, but it's been really hard to get that message out. So at last, that's happening. So can I start with our Rotary Action Group, Food Plant Solutions Rotary Action Group. We exist because we care about that every minute of every day, so every minute of every day, 5 children under 5 die from malnutrition or malnutrition-related causes. We care that world hunger is on the rise. In 3 years, it's gone from 804 million to 821 million. And the World Bank just emailed me and said they're expecting it to go to 880 million people this year. 1 in 8 adults worldwide is obese. We know that girls who are born malnourished and become stunted as children will often become malnourished mothers, and the cycle then repeats itself. This cycle can be broken, empowering women through education so that they understand what nutritional food is, why their bodies need it, and how to access it. There are countless statistics, and as a whole, they're absolutely overwhelming. But for Food Plant Solutions Committee, each of these individuals was somebody's little son or daughter, someone's little brother or sister. They mattered then and they still matter. The upshot is there is a significant need to address hunger, malnutrition and food security. And clearly what we've been doing through the programs, aid programs through the decades, is not working long term. We have a set of core values which are important to us: integrity, collaboration, and respecting others. We say what we mean and we mean what we say. If it's not something we'd like people to know about, we won't say it or do it. We seek first to understand and then to be understood. We respect our volunteers and staff. Everyone is equal and everybody matters. And these are absolutely non-negotiable. So what do? Formed in 2007, Food Plant Solutions Rotary Action Group creates science-based educational materials that explain what nutritional food is, why human bodies need it and how to grow it and use it. Our publications present scientific evidence in plain English, which are then tailored for all levels of illiteracy. They're designed to empower people, but particularly women, so that they can knowledgeably choose what plants to grow and eat that will nutritiously feed themselves and their family. We focus on what are often neglected or termed neglected, underutilised plants. Plants that we consider could be potentially important food plants for a country or a region because of their nutritional value, and that they're already growing in and adapted to the environment and their superiority to imported foods and plants. The Tasmanian agricultural scientist and officer of the Order of Australia recipient Bruce French has spent his life creating the world's largest database of edible plants. It currently has 32,800 edible plants for all countries in the world. We use that on the food plants, which is the Food Plants International Database, to identify information on what we consider could be potentially important food plants for a particular country because of their nutritional value and because they're suited to the conditions. We're unique for a few reasons. Our approach is based on science, but really it's as simple as growing the right plant in the right place if you understand that science. We don't send people into country, but instead build linkages with existing providers. We don't want to be the wise men from the East telling them what to do. There are countless aid organisations already working in every country. If we sent people in, this only adds duplication and significant cost. Because of our approach, we're very low cost. The most important component in our project is a local program partner. They will be established and understand ways to engage with their community and therefore empower them to act. Our primary method of delivering information is through the creation of a field guide titled Potentially Important Food Plants of a Country. And you can see the cover of the one for Nepal on the screen. For each guide contains information on approximately 40 edible plants from all major food groups, all high in nutrients. We focus on plants that require minimal input, that is minimal water, fertiliser and chemicals. And with that in mind, we seek to avoid commercially grown crops unless they are also significant foods grown for local household consumption. The field guide contains information on sustainable methods of growing plants, why soil is important, and how to look after and improve it. The guide can be and has been translated into many local languages, which helps make the information accessible to many more people. Using the field guide as a foundation, other primarily pictorial publications can be created. And feedback from those, our program partners, inform us that recipients of these publications love them. How the information we provide is used depends on our program partner. They have the local knowledge, networks, and resources. For any program to succeed, one thing is key. Our program partners must invest in it. This does not necessarily mean financially at all, but for success, they must have embraced it, believed in it, and be fully committed to making it happen. This ensures dignity and empowerment. One way that's proving very successful is through the creation of school gardens or gardens in the community hooked to a hospital or a community hall in those areas. I'll give you some examples now of school gardens. This is one of our best stories. A pilot program in Vietnam that commenced in 2012 with our program partner has been so well received, it's expanded from 2 trial gardens to now encompass 2 provinces and 14 schools, which directly impact over 4,000 children and 400 adults. Some of the results include the students at the schools enjoy the benefits of the plants they've grown as they're provided with nutritious lunch each day. Families are now duplicating the school gardens at home. The schools are saving money each month for not having to buy food, which means this money can be redirected to other necessities. There's been a significant increase in enrolments, as parents feel much more confident in the school's ability to provide nutritionally for their children, which in turn frees up the parents to increase their household income as they have more time to work. What was happening was the kids would go home for lunch at lunchtime and never come back. Malnutrition, though, has significantly reduced. Our latest results for the 12-month period show a reduction in malnutrition from 40% to 100% across 8 schools. Not only does this show impact and result, but it shows we're not a quick fix. Sustainable change, I'm sure as you're aware, always takes time. The next project is an interesting one. It's the Miravar Foundation in the Philippines. It was over 10 years ago with the main objective, we take people out of poverty permanently. We commenced communications with the Miravar Foundation in 2013, and 5 years later, the Philippine president decreed that every community must establish a communal garden for the same reasons that we're championing, and they asked for our assistance. We had a field guide, potentially important food plants in the Philippines, which they reviewed and we updated. They then requested 4 picture guides, which we set about trying to raise $10,000 to create these. The Rotary Club of Hobart and a district designated fund from our district joined together and donated the $10,000, which enabled us to create the picture guides. The Miravar Foundation provides seeds and other planting materials in accordance with our publications. The information in each publication is discussed once a month at a family development session. They've said, and I quote, "The learning tools that you provided are very informative and beneficial to the members of our community. With these tools, it will be easy for us as grassroots workers to design programs that will help us combat malnutrition and provide our people with ideas on how to sustain our food supply." These photos show a garden that was established in accordance with the FPS publications. As of this time, they've planted 23 plant varieties from our publication in this garden. And in this particular garden, there are 12 families that will benefit from and approximately 57 family members. We would like now to raise funds to provide the publications in a printed hard copy form. Unfortunately, since that, they've had a cyclone go through and most of their gardens have been flattened. And just before Christmas, we got a letter from the head of the Miravar Foundation to apologise that they had so much work to do that they wouldn't be able to replant the gardens this year. So they needed to stop that work. We contacted a friend in the Philippines who is a past director and said to him, he's on our board, and we told him about the story, and we said, look, they need money to rebuild those gardens and help. Is there something you and your Rotary clubs can do? In return email, he emailed me and said, let me know the amount of money and I'll send a check straight away. And that's what he did. He contacted the Miravar Foundation and has agreed to pay monthly for what will cost them to get all the gardens started again. And the garden in his area, which is one of the areas that they're in, is going to be supported by hands-on with members of his club, which is just amazing. And we thank him completely. The next thing that happened is a group called Fresh Food for Families. I was called to a meeting of a past director who'd been and visited a new refugee family who'd just moved into a home in Tasmania. And I'm sure these families are moving into all of your areas as well. Though a box came in with vegetables from our community, and the lady looked at her supporter and said, what are these? What do I do with these? I want to feed my children, but I don't know what to do. So he got us all together and we formed a group called Fresh Food for Families. So imagine you're an immigrant family to a country which, in contrast to all that you're familiar with, you're keen to be a good provider for your family, but the idea of growing fresh fruit and vegetables is part of that. But where do you start? Fresh Food for Families is a workshop that was developed to support immigrants to learn how to grow, nurture, harvest, and prepare nutritious fresh foods in this climate, where both plants and climate are new to them. Whilst this workshop was developed for immigrants, its usefulness goes far beyond supporting newly arrived immigrants. The workshop can be used in schools, community centres, men's sheds, and it's for any group which wants to help others to learn how to grow and eat nutritious foods. The workshop is a day workshop and is divided into 4 smaller sessions, and on the day the participants attend each of these. And you can see the Nepalese group, which is our first group. They cover some of the basics of growing fresh food with the assumption that participants are mostly inexperienced. Lunch is provided, as are all the materials: gardening gloves for adults and children, some hand tools, fertiliser samples, and information sheets. Participants take home all of these, as well as pots planted during the day. We've seen participants from the workshop become much more involved in the community and benefit from growing their own fresh produce. But as well as that, we've developed a manual which is on our website, which will walk you through an easy to follow set of instructions on how to conduct a Fresh Food for Families event. It's a really good how-to manual and has been used by groups in the community. The interesting outcome of this first group with the Nepalese people is that they decided to print then a newsletter, which is still going, and they decided also that their children needed to learn to speak Nepali, because they'd come to Tasmania, had children very young when they got here, or had children when they got here, and the children had refused to speak Nepali. So now the workshop is going every Saturday, and these kids are now speaking both languages. We now have done one for the Ethiopian community, and the offshoot of that is that the 2 political groups in Ethiopia, which are now fighting in the north every so often, they don't ever socially get together. But the man that we got involved with this workshop was a guy who just got his PhD in Tasmania, and he was respected by both groups, and he managed to get them together for the first time, and they worked together in the garden and have now got a lot of home gardens going in pots and on balconies. And the third group we worked with was the Thai community, who've been in Tasmania quite a while, but have never been involved much with growing their own gardens, and they were really excited to be involved. And we're now working in a community group in Devonport, which is in the north part of Tasmania, and we're starting one in the Launceston group. And any club can start it. It's really a day project, and you come away absolutely excited about meeting and being part of this community. People emailed us and said, what can we do? So COVID has affected all of us in some way, and for some, the impact will be long-lasting and dire, as you know. The World Food Programme has estimated that the number of people facing acute food insecurity will increase by 130 million in 2020 as a result of COVID. I can't imagine what it must be like to have to worry about how I'm going to feed myself and my family, and I can't imagine what it must be like to hear children crying from hunger and exhaustion. When I think of it, I just feel despair and angst. Quite possibly there are people in your community who are wondering how they're going to feed themselves and their families because of COVID. By growing some of their own food, it will give people something positive to engaging and, importantly, nutritious food. For those who've lost employment, this helps to give them something immediately to focus on, and in very little time they can be benefiting from their effort. What's more, gardening is proven to be good for our mental health. which is understandably a huge issue for us all at the moment. We provide a soft leaflet for you to print and distribute that is specific to the region you live in. Our agronomists work on it from the database. It would contain the following information: 15 edible plants that grow in your area and high in most beneficial nutrients. Each plant will have information including common name, scientific name, key points regarding use, key points regarding cultivation, information on nutrients and why they're important, and information on how to start a garden. The leaflet would then allow anybody to start their own garden, whether it be in one pot in an apartment or turning over some lawn in a yard. For very little effort, it could have and does have a positive impact. We've created many of these for all around the world, and the positive feedback has been incredible. I spoke at a group in India at their changeover. There were 400 people present, and it was in the north of India, and the district governor decreed that all clubs had to build a garden in their communities. And in India, what the district governor says goes, not necessarily in Tasmania. And so I've had feedback from so many of those clubs about what they're doing and how good they've been. And we prepared 3 different field guides, brief guides for them, because they were in 3 different areas that needed different plants at different times. So there are a whole lot of things that you could do in your community. Perhaps if you're running a school or building, I was thinking about it when you said you were building beds. What do those people have? Do they have a garden that they can feed their kids on, and as well as having beds for the children and the adults? Maybe they could start a garden in a pot or a trough where they can then feed their children better food as well. So there's lots of things that we can help you with, being a Rotary Action Group and just being ourselves Food Plant Solutions. So how can you help? Obviously funding's our big one. Because of COVID and the clubs not meeting together, we're finding it really hard to get our usual donations, because of course it costs money to prepare all these, and we only work with one part-time admin person who is amazing, but she can't do everything. Each publication costs money to create, as does editing, translation and printing. We continue to have requests for publications that we can't meet due to funding. To meet these needs, we need financial support, donations and sponsors. So I suppose I say to you, if you've got any little bit of cash left out of your fundraising this year, we would love to be able to use some of that. If you also know of people who could be sponsors or committee meetings members in your area who could take this message around to clubs in your areas, because one person can't do every Zoom meeting at 5 o'clock in the morning or at any other time. So they're kind of our wishes, and thank you for having us. Thank you.
Mark, you're muted.
I'm not muted. No.
I think those are some of the most repeated words of 2021 so far. You're muted.
Yeah.
Una, thank you very much for that. Are there any questions, thoughts or comments from anyone? If there are, please unmute yourself and jump right in. If not, Una, how long have you been doing this?
I've been the chair since 2015, but I've been on the committee since 2013. And it's got bigger and bigger. At the moment, we've got about $70,000 worth of projects that we can't do because we have no funds to employ somebody else to manage these. The agronomists, you see, who do it off the side of their desk after they've been at work, take the database and pick the plants out that are necessary for that country and then work on all of that. But they do that after work. And then it's up to our one admin to put it all together into presentations. If you look on the website, you'll see they're fabulous educational materials there, but they do take time and money. So this year, though, because of Zoom, because of COVID, it's been good for us in that I've been invited to speak at so many places around the world, which has been terrific. So it's got our message out a little quicker, but it means we've got a lot more requests as well.
Yeah, I guess having all of these Zoom meetings has opened a lot of our eyes to a lot of different people and places that we wouldn't normally have if we just stuck to our own little corner of the world. So,
Yes,
well,
it's been great.
Una, there's a question about which countries you're in around the world. But if you don't mind, let me just share your map from your website. And maybe you can use that to explain.
All right, so all of those dots are countries in which we work. Although we've added, well, 2 or 3 areas in the US that haven't been put on, but we work in major countries, so Pakistan, India, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, and all of those little countries in Africa are probably the poorest and the ones that we hope to get to more often. We've got Singapore, some areas in Thailand. We've just got into China. We do a lot of work around Australia, obviously, and in New Zealand. We've got a group in Norway that's about to start with their first garden. And I've talked to a lot of people in the US, and I'm not sure what's happened with their areas because we have to rely on them to let us know what they're doing. The other thing is that anybody can get into our website and download the material without telling us. The website asks you to tell us what you're doing, but often we don't know until either something goes wrong or that they have great success 3 or 4 years later. So we're in about 32 countries in the world and working with a lot of people. We're also having difficulties in some cases now, and I'll give you one short example. I've been working with a gentleman that I met at the convention in Toronto from Uganda who has some land in Uganda and has built a school and a nursery and wanted to now then 3 years ago or more get a garden going for their community because it's a very poor community. So he called together the elders in the community to tell them about food plan solutions and what they'd like to do with them. So the elders left the room and went out to talk about what that would mean for them. Did they want to get involved? And they came back and said, no, we don't want to. And there was stunned silence from us as well as from the guy who was introducing it. And he said, why? And they said, well, we get a food drop every month. And Bob answered, but hang on a minute, the food drop only lasts your families for 3 weeks. And this man said, but that's okay. It doesn't hurt our kids and our wife to go without food for the other week. So it's taken about 3 years for now a group of women have come to Bruce and said, and Bob and all of the group, and said, we want to start. So for the first time, a garden will be begun with the women of the community who, in fact, are very brave to come and decide they're going to do it instead. So it's not a quick fix in some countries, but it does happen in the end. And we're delighted that this group is at last starting to develop their gardens. So there are often particular issues involved.
Mm-hmm. Well, once again, Una, I want to thank you for your presentation today. I've opened a lot of eyes and hopefully hearts as well. So I want to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
And